Hello YouTube! Today in the Naughty Librarian, I'm going over my tops and bottoms from Q2 of 2021. Normally I do like a big yearly wrap up of like my favorites of the year, but you know what? I want to talk about more books each time I do that, so I've been doing it quarterly this year and having fun with it. I mean, it's only the second time I'm doing it, but so far it's fun. These books, my favorites and least favorites, are only from the books I read from April to June 2021, and I am excited. There are some really good ones in here, some contenders for best books of the year, and some contenders for worst books of the year. Onwards and upwards, let's go with the best. One of my favorites was Her Wicked Marquess by Stacey Reed. Oh my word, was this amazing. This is a historical rom-com. It also has, you know, steam, it has laughs, it has like an adorable swoony couple, and also like a good sprinkling of Count of Monte Cristo vibes. What? Yes, you heard that correctly. So this is Marianne and Nicholas. Marianne is kind of a wallflower, and her parents are trying to marry her off to this guy who's just a creep and as old as her father. So she's like, I am not dealing with this. No, 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 no. And so she needs to ruin herself. So essentially she just starts this rumor. She's like, oh, you know the Marquess of Rothbury? The guy who's like the biggest rake in town? Yeah, he snuck into my room and we kissed. And she just starts telling people this. And, you know, Nicholas, the Marquess of Rothbury, is like, I did what? So he kind of finds out about this rumor, and he has his own reasons for going along with it. And honestly, they have like a really great, like, delightful relationship where they come to like love each other, and a lot of it's just like him sneaking into her room at night and not fucking. So like a lot of this book, they're just like friends and like playing games and talking and really getting to know each other. And eventually, yes, they do start sleeping with each other, but you know, a lot of the book is also like them growing a friendship and also just learning to love each other, which is really, really cool. And then on top of that, you have a huge revenge plot. So Nicholas is going around ruining all these other people in the aristocracy who wronged him in the past. Basically, they hurt someone he loved. He's like, I will destroy them. So he has this huge revenge plot he's working on. And then there's also Marianne, who's trying not to marry this other guy. And I love it intensely. It like surprised me how much I was into this. It's so good. Another one of my faves was Lord of Scoundrels by Loretta Chase. This one, I have to thank you guys, my subscribers, who kept leaving this in the comments saying you need to read this, and I was like, okay, I'll read it. And then I did, and I loved it. This is Sebastian and Jessica. Sebastian is the Marquess of Dane, so another Marquess, and he is like a bad guy, like cartoonishly bad guy, you know what I mean? Like the mustache twirling. And like he fully like is okay with that. He's just like, yeah, you know what? And I'm weird looking. Like they say that multiple times in the book that he's like not a looker, which is kind of like refreshing because you always meet these marquesses and dukes and lords or whatever, and they're always like devastatingly handsome. And I'm like, probably not all of them were. And then you have Jessica, who is the best. You know when you read like historical romance and you want those feisty heroines and then you don't get them because they're like feisty for like a minute and then they just turn into like some woman crying in a house dress over a man, and you're like, why? And then Jessica is just straight diabolical the whole time. I love her intensely. Like Sebastian will do something cruel or mean or something, and she's like, oh, that's how you want to play it? I can play that way. And Sebastian just like is horrified because he's like, oh no. So it's like good, like having the bad guy meet his match. He's like, oh, you think this was bad? Like, I'll show you bad. Like, I love her. And of course they have this big romance, but they're also like on equal footing with like the torture they put each other through. So it's like, does this normally work for me? No, it's not a trope I like, but in this instance, like I'm into it. Mainly just because like Jessica's holding her own ground. She's not just like being sad that he's being mean to her. Like Jessica is just mean right on back. So I love it. It's just like antagonistic, but they work together very well, and I'm into it. Yet another historical romance that I really adored in Q2 was Romancing Mr. Bridgerton by Julia Quinn. I went on a full Bridgerton binge. Like I read all of the books in a course of 2 weeks. It's a lot. I don't necessarily recommend. Maybe add in another week, because by the end of the Bridgerton binge, it was like an endurance test. And not all of them I liked, but this one is my favorite of the series. This is Colin and Penelope. Oh my gosh, it gave me like all of the delightful rom-com laughs and like, you know, zany antics that I want, and I love it. So Penelope has always kind of had this long-standing crush on Colin. And Colin, you know, he never really like looked at Penelope. Like Penelope was just his sister's friend, so he's like, whatever. And he's left traveling and moving around the world and stuff, and he finally comes back, and now they're both grown, they're grown-ups. Like I believe like Penelope's in like, she's like 27, so quite the spinster at this point in this time period. And Colin gets back and he's, you know, he starts hanging out with Penelope again. He's like, wow, like Penelope's cool. Like he's really kind of getting into Penelope, so it's kind of interesting seeing like childhood friends grow up into adults and then meet again and then kind of be like, okay. Like I kind of really like their like romance. And Colin is just like a goofy guy, and Penelope is also kind of goofy, so like it worked on a lot of levels. It's romantic, it's swoony, it's steamy, and also it's hilarious, and there's zany antics. It's got everything I want. Moving on to some fantasy favorites, I have In the Ravenous Dark by A.M. Strickland. This was highly recommended to me by my friend Bethany from Beautifully Bookish Bethany. She's like, you guys gotta read this, it's incredible. So I was like, okay, I trust you. I pre-ordered it. And oh man, this was just so fun to read. We're following Rowan. She is a pansexual blood mage and also kind of an asshole, but like I like it. And in this world, people have blood magic, and then people have death magic, and like there's this whole thing. I'm not gonna get into the whole magic system of this book right now, but like there's necromancy and like evil kings and all this kind of stuff. And long story short, Rowan has to start a rebellion amongst both the living and the dead to save the day and literally save the world from dying. So like she's got a lot to do. Also, it's very sex positive. Like it's a little bit of a throuple, honestly. Like kind of a throuple. Basically, Rowan is just polyamorous. So she has a girlfriend and a boyfriend, and it's just, oh, like it has so much like dark, creepy goth vibes, and like I was feeling it so hard. So if you want like a good fantasy with like queer representation and also like diabolical characters who are like kind of assholes but like lovable assholes, also hilarious dialogue sometimes, I really, really recommend this. Like technically, is it a YA book? Yes, but like it doesn't read like one. Like honestly, like this, it kind of mismarketed as YA. Like I get why it is because some of the characters are young, and I'm sure like a YA audience could read this and enjoy it, but like it's pretty adult. So I really, really like it. Blood mage, necromancy, pansexuals. Like I love it all. It's so good. Please just go read this. It's great. Speaking of unlikable characters, I also read The Shadows Between Us by Trisha Levenseller, and this book had been on my shelf for quite some time. This is another recommendation, actually, from Madison over at Princess of Paperback. She said, girl, you gotta read this. So I said, okay, and I bought it and just never read it. And so I finally did, and oh my goodness, these characters are diabolical. They're like the bad guys. You know, like all these books we've ever read in life where you follow, you know, the plucky leader of the resistance against the evil king and queen. This book is just about the evil king and queen, like just them being evil. And I'm like, well, if everyone's horrible, like it's just kind of normal at this point, you know? Our main protagonist here is Alessandra, and she is just a complete sociopath, but like so fun to read about. Like the first line of this book is, they've never found the body of the first and only boy who broke my heart, and they never will. So the book starts off the first line with murder, and then from there on, she's just diabolical and very, like, she's like the evil queen, but like fun, and you want to read about her. But like realistically, she is fucking ruthless and horrible. So I think if you just want to read about bad guys being bad guys, this is gonna be fun for you. It's like an actual cool story. There's a dash of magic in it. Like her whole plan is basically like, oh, I'm gonna go to the palace, I'm gonna seduce the king, then I'm gonna kill him, and then just be queen. La la la. Like that's her big plan. And of course, you know, they fall in love because they're both bad guys. Because the king, he's just equally as ruthless and diabolical and sociopathic as Alessandra is. So they get along swimmingly. Like, he eventually finds out about the guy she killed, like, in sentence 1 of the book, and he's like, oh, you killed him? Whatever, fuck that guy. Like, that's his whole response to it. It's very fun to read. It's just like fun story about bad guys. I enjoyed it. My last favorite from quarter 2 is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. Hot damn, this is fantastic. Like, oh my gosh, I put it down after I finished reading it, and my first like sentence I said was, oh my gosh, this is phenomenal. I am constantly looking for an amazing Arthurian legend retelling, and I've read a lot of them, and I never find one that's very good. And then this beauty of a book, Legendborn, comes into my life and saves the day. This is an Arthurian legend retelling that's like chef's kiss good. So we're following Bree. She's in high school, and she gets kind of accepted into like an early college admission program at this university. And she wants to go because she has a lot of things going on in her personal life, like her mother just died, so she's like, I need to be away from where I am right now. And of course she goes, and you know, this wouldn't be much of a Arthurian legend retelling if there wasn't any magic and monsters. So first night on campus, she goes to a party, and like, there are freaking demons and monsters, and she's like, why can no one see them but me? And apparently there's like this whole, you know, like secret society, like on college campuses, like they have in like so many books. And there's this big secret society, and it's basically like descendants of Arthur and his knights. And there was some magic done by Merlin back in the day that let like their descendants become avatars. So the Knights of the Round Table and Arthur can like re-inhabit the bodies of their ancestors and like, you know, fight evil, because apparently there's like the big showdown with evils coming. And it's just really, really good. Like, it has all these great fantasy elements, it has all these great characters and all of that, but it also has like really important social commentary, because Bree is a black woman in the South. She has a whole other list of like difficulties and problems in her life that have nothing to do with magic. So it's also like really interesting cultural study. It's also a really great magic story. It also is King Arthur, and it's a fantastic book. I just want the next book, like, desperately. It has kind of a cliffhanger ending, and why don't I have it now? That's the only part that makes me sad, is I don't have book 2, but it is phenomenal. Please read this. All right, so that does it for my favorites. Let's get into my least favorites now. I just really didn't get into the Heiress Hunt by Joanna Shupe. It was just bad. Ooh, okay, so here's the deal. Like, I've read like a little bit of stuff by Joanna Shupe, and I really wanted to read more because I always hear like great things about it, especially like Charles from Books on Stereo. Like, the Uptown Girls is like one of his favorite series. So I was like, okay, let's try more Joanna Shupe. And what? Like, I don't know. Like, it was one of these books I started reading, and I'm like, ooh, I don't think this is the author's best work. And I haven't read that much of the author's work, and already I'm like, I don't even think the author likes these characters. And then I went and looked up like Goodreads reviews like after I had been reading a while and formed my own opinions, and apparently like people agree. Like, this is not her best work. So I was like, oh no. So this is Harrison and Maddie. They were like childhood friends. And Harrison was like in love with Maddie, was gonna tell her like, oh, I'm in love with you. And then he heard her like trash talk him to her friends. She's like, oh, him, ew, like, he's like my brother, like, I would never date him. And he's like crushed, and he runs away to Paris for years. And then finally he comes back, you know, with revenge, not to her, but to his family who are dicks. And he's just like, oh, I'm gonna have this elaborate plan for revenge, and also I'm gonna marry Maddie, I'm gonna trick her into it. And just like, already the concept is bad. And also, Maddie is supposed to be this really cool modern character who's smart and independent. She's a tennis player. Like, you have all these cool things, but she is dumb as a fucking post. Really? You can't fathom that someone was in love with you? Like, he acted like he was in love with you. Like, he wasn't even really hiding it that well. And she just can't fathom anything. Like, she has no brain power to think. And I was like, why are you the heroine of this? Like, you are too dumb to exist. And like, it just went downhill from there. I gave it like 2 stars. Like, it had its moments where it was cute, but overall, oh boy, this was just a hot mess. I really could not get into Shadow and Claw by Gene Wolfe. This was one of the books of the month for the Blazing Bodice Rippers book club, and oh man, this is one of these books that I I don't like books like this, and this one did not change my opinion. It's kind of post-apocalyptic, sci-fi a little bit, fantasy a little bit. It's kind of like the dying Earth trope, and I mean, like, I get it. I get the concepts here, like, and they sound cool. However, like, it's so bad. Like, I could not make heads or tails of what was happening in the book. And I read the whole thing. I did. I read the whole thing. I could tell you events that happened in the book and what happened, but I have no idea what happened at the same time. Like, what does this mean? It's just all this random shit happening. And I'm like, what is the story? It's just like watching random shit happen. And I'm like, what is going on? I have a brain full of gopher holes at this point. Like, that's how it made me feel reading it. What? We're following this guy, Severian. He was kind of like raised in the guild of torturers to be a torturer, and then he shows mercy to someone one day, and the torturer's like, you gotta get the fuck out of here. So they kick him out, and he goes on an adventure. That's the basic idea for the plot here, and it's just, nothing makes sense. I think at one time there was a robot and an alien, and then, like, witches. Like, there's too much. I didn't like any of it. It was very male gazy, and it was, it hurt my brain to read it, because I understood the words on the page and what was happening in events, but, like, I don't know what happened. Like, what happened here? Like, I don't know. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me and I'm not smart enough to understand it, but, like, it just made my brain hurt. This is such a disappointment, but second First Impressions by Sally Thorne. Oh, man. Like, this book is just straight drivel. It's so bad. And I've read Sally Thorne's other two books and enjoyed them. You know, she wrote The Hating Game, which is very cute. She wrote 99% Mine, which is a completely different book, but I kind of liked it still. So I pre-ordered this. I was like, oh my gosh, this one's gonna have turtles. It's gonna be a rom-com. I'm so into it. But what I got was like, I feel like it's an episode of Seventh Heaven that happened in real life. Does that make sense? I mentioned that when I first reviewed it, and I realized Seventh Heaven was apparently on all over the world. Like, a lot of people have seen this show. But it basically just follows his pastor and his family. And our heroine, Ruthie, she's a pastor's kid, very, you know, kind of repressed, has, like, trauma from the past, and also, you know, dresses like an 80-year-old woman because she works at a retirement community. And then you have Teddy come in, and, like, I get Teddy's appeal. Like, he shows up, he's on a motorcycle, he's got tattoos and long hair. Like, he's, like, the stereotypical bad boy that would be in a Seventh Heaven episode. And, like, he's just really into Ruthie. And I don't understand why, because, like, does he have a mommy fetish? Like, I don't get it. All she does is, like, take care of him. Like, she gives him blankets because he doesn't even own blankets. Like, he's, like, just a man-child, and she takes care of him, and he finds it hot. So I'm like, what is this weird mommy kink? Like, what? My favorite part were the sassy old ladies. There's these, like, sassy old lady couple, and I was way into them, and I thought they were cool. I would have wished to read their whole story. Like, their whole story started in the 60s. Like, let's read about them. Like, they would have been dope to read about. And this, it was just really bad. It's just straight drivel. Like, even the dialogue is just so stilted and, like, not how people actually talk to each other, that I was like, what happened? Who hurt you, Sally Thorne? Like, what happened here? I don't get it. It's just, it hurt my feelings. It was so bad. I also have to put The Black-Tongued Thief by Christopher Buehlman on this list. Not necessarily because I think it's a bad book. It's just, I DNF'd it because I didn't like it. So that's why it's on this list. Every book I read, I try to read at least 100 pages of before I DNF something, because if I read 100 pages and I am not into it, I doubt the next however many 100 pages are gonna save it for me. So yeah, I read the first 100 pages of this, and it's kind of the same vibe I got from Shadow and Claw, where, like, I know all the events that happened, but, like, fucking why did they happen? I don't know. It's like this, like, tone of writing style that happens a lot in fantasies that, like, I just don't get into. And I mean, it's in a lot of fantasy books, so obviously it's kind of like a bread and butter kind of writing style, but, like, I do not like it. And this book is, like, so pretty. Honestly, it's a cover buy. I pre-ordered it, and I'm so disappointed that I didn't like it. I DNF'd. But it's about you know, this rascal thief named Kinch, and he's got to like pay back some money to people. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna rob whoever comes down this road next. Turns out it's Galva, who's like this badass lady warrior who's like a warrior who works for the god of death. And so like, oh, this is the wrong person to rob. And then their like paths keep crossing, and they're on this like adventure, kind of end up together on this adventure. And I mean, I don't know where it goes. I've only read the first 100 pages and I was not into it. It's kind of just toilet humor, honestly. Like, honestly, there's just fart jokes and dick jokes, which, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I like a good fart and dick joke. Who doesn't? But, like, that, it's just so, like, immature in this that it was just like, I can't like buy into this character as someone I should care about. It's like, oh my god, you are a grown-ass man, sir. So it has like a lot of tropes I tend to like in fantasy. I just didn't like how it was structured and how it was like the writing style, essentially. So I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a bad book, it just wasn't a book for me. Another book that hurt my feelings with how bad it is Persephone Station by Stina Leaked. This is, again, a cover buy. I mean, look at it. Look at it. This cover is gorgeous. Oh my gosh. And the concepts here are fantastic. It's kind of like a space western, so it gives me like Mandalorian vibes. And we're following Rosie. And Rosie is the proprietor of like, you know, the cantina. So like the criminal underbelly hangs out. And there's also this corporation that comes to this like little backwards planet. And they're trying to do bad things, and the people who live on the planet need to fight back, and there's gonna be like a fight. Like, that's the whole like concept I'm getting out of this. And also, the entire main cast of this book is either female, queer, non-binary, or some combination thereof. And love that. So concept, character roster, great. Like, it has a lot of things like I really like about it, and also the cover, gorgeous. But like, the writing style is just unintelligible. Like, I read 100 pages of this book, and like, I can't even tell you what happened. This other books, I'm like, yeah, I know what happened. I can tell you events. And this one, I'm like, I can't even really tell you events. Like, I don't understand what I read, and I read 100 pages of it. And I thought, is it me? Is it just me? Is it like my ADHD? Do I need to go back and restart this? Because obviously my brain is wandering. And so I went to Goodreads, of course, and I looked up reviews, and I'm like, oh, it's not just me. There were so many reviews of people going like, I don't know what's going on. So I'm like, okay, it's not just me. I feel a little better about DNFing this. I mean, A+ for effort. It has a great concept, a great cover. I love the cast. It's just like, it's unintelligibly written. Like, I have no idea what happened, and I've read 100 pages of it. My last least favorite book is The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. Now, I know a lot of people have read this book and actually really enjoyed it. So if you like this book, I am so happy for you. I went into this book fully intending to want to like it. It's kind of about, you know, like back in the like Regency era, 1700s, 1800s era, there were like a lot of female apothecaries who would sell cosmetics that were secretly husband poison. And I am so into those stories. Like, I will like go down Google rabbit holes about them. I love it. And so this book came along, and it's a kind of about that. And it also has like a modern day component with this modern day woman, and somehow these two stories are supposed to connect. And I was like, okay, like, let's see how this is. And I don't know why the story is how it is. Like, the modern day tale and then, you know, the apothecary tale don't go together at all. So it's just like, I don't see how this adds to the story. You know, the apothecary story, they have no idea what's happening in the future. They don't know this modern lady. She just kind of researches apothecaries and kind of learns, like, what the history book has said about them, but like not who they really were. And so like the accompanying chapters are like who these people actually were in real life. So like, I get it, but like, I don't think it adds to the story. I wish they just would have wrote the apothecary story, because that could have been fun. It's like an older woman taking on a young girl apprentice, and like, you know, they get in trouble, and so they have to do all this stuff. So I would have loved that story. But then we just have Caroline's story, and I mean, like, I can understand the value of that story. Caroline goes to England to get away from her husband. They've been married for a long time and thought they had an amazing relationship. Turns out he's been fucking the secretary, so whoa. So she goes to London, she's like, I need time. And it's just kind of like a marriage drama where they're like, I don't know. In the end of the book, it kind of makes it seem like she's gonna take him back after he like fucked his secretary. Like, not just one time, like a lot. So, like, I don't know. Either story might have been good on their own, but when you put them together, so you only get half of each, it just diminishes both stories. So it doesn't work with the format it's in. So, like, maybe, like, I think if they were two different books, I could have got into them a bit more, but, like, I don't know. I just wanted to like this more than I ended up liking it. Alright, so that concludes my tops and bottoms of quarter 2. I've read some really great stuff, I've read some really not so great stuff, but that's just how life is, you know? But I am looking forward to quarter 3. I'm hoping there are going to be much more favorite books and least favorite books. Fingers crossed, but we'll find out in the future what happens. Let me know in the comments down below, what was your favorite and least favorite book from quarter 2 of 2021? Suggest books read between April and June. I don't know what you've read, tell me in the comments down below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye.